Hello, José Pedro. Actually, it's very nice to see you again. Last time I saw you was in
my studio in
Lisbon in January. And how do you find the hanging? How do you find your works hanging in the gallery?
I'm very happy with the installation. This is a part of my last production, and I think it fits perfectly in the gallery. And these works are about the tension with the limits. So that's also the title that we've been discussing for this exhibition, which has these three moments, which is tense, release, stretch. So it's working on the limits of the paper, on different speeds of gesture. There's gestures that are made with the brush very quick, and then the lines that are drawn one by one in Indian ink, and they fill all the surface with transparencies over the varnish of the brush. And then there's a sculpture that works also in tension with the corner. It's a corner piece, and with empty space, with the mirrored glass, and tensions with the corner and with the architecture and with our body, the body of the person that stands in front of
the visitor.
Yes.
And yes, and actually we already have shown in an exhibition I curated a few years ago a piece of you, already a corner piece in the same.
Absolutely, in the same corner.
In the same corner where we are right now. And actually I really like this series of sculptures that for me are speaking about space, 3 dimension, but never in showing volumes, really. It's like it's really about perception, and it's so close from all the plans you are working with in your paperworks. I see from where I'm many of them, and I can really feel this superimposed layers of grids. You duplicate, and you move slightly like cards falling apart almost. But you have. Can you tell us about the way you about all these layers of grid you add on in your etching works?
In these drawings, right? They are measuring the space. Well, actually, my drawings are of a scale of a human okay. scale. So they are drawings from a sculpture, and the movements of the hand with the brush goes from one limit to the other one. So it's measuring the space. And what I do afterward in the grids is also dividing the space with simple rectangles and superposing the rectangles and creating movement, but it's creating not just a movement from left to the right and from the bottom to the top, but also on profound that goes in the limits of the
depth,
the horizon. So this in a kind of Euclidean geometry. So it's working in these two apparently contradictory directions. One which is on the surface that goes from left to the right and from the bottom to the up, and the other one that goes from our presence to the midst of the infinity.
Yes, I really feel this relation, this space relation with work, and the movement and the fact that we walk through, which the perception change, and it's difficult to resist, not to go to approach your work and to go back, to take some distance again, and it's about adjustment. The visitor has to adjust the distance with the work to perceive either the slight difference or the details, translucid elements, also the drips of the paint, of the varnish, and also it's possible. I've seen also possible to see some movement of your hands on it. Sometimes it's not only brush, no. Sometimes you use your own fingers.
But my fingerprints as well.
Fingerprints. Okay.
Registration of the making of. So I was talking about my work in terms of how I became a sculptor and how I became making drawings, or which are similar to painting, but they are drawings, because the issues that they work is of space, of limits, of lines, and not in terms of landscape. And when I decided to study painting and sculpture, was early 70s, so the generation ahead of mine was conceptual art and performers, and they had a big influence on my early years. But at the same time, for me, I couldn't make the same gestures, because it would be a copy. So I needed to go back, and all my generation, I think in a way, they needed to go back to painting and sculpture, but it's a painting and sculpture not in the same way that could be made before the 60s. Because we have to incorporate and to integrate already the movement of performance, the performance and conceptual art.
So the Robert Rauschenberg and Simon Forti, for instance.
Yes.
Can you tell us about your work? Compare this.
In a way, of course, I'm absolutely interested in that, because it's. That's what I was talking, going from left to the right. Yes. It's exactly what Bruce Nauman was, for instance, was making in his performances, but he would share with the public his own body. And what we do is that we share not our body directly, we share our body through the signs that you leave on the paper. So the rhythm of and the speed of the brush, going from left to right, and then putting upside down the dripping and moving, so changing position. And so you have to look and look back and look again, and the things don't have just one position in a way that it's something, there is a closed object that stands behind, in front of you. It's more a field of energies that you confront yourself, and they are always moving. If you approach, if you get a distance, if you approach very closely, and every time you see different things and you have different perceptions.
It's not feeling, so it's really about this game between appearance and disappearance. I was saying Robert Rauschenberg, and actually with Merce Cunningham, it's more this field of performance.
But this performance of Rauschenberg and Merce Cunningham, they were absolutely radical in a way that they would work with just the white canvas and the shadows. And so it's here I use like paint, but I'm registration of different movements, different speeds, and different times. Because sometimes it's very quickly, and sometimes it's very, very slow. Almost nothing happens. It's just drawing line and
stretching the lines,
stretching the lines for
one by
one, during 3 or 4 weeks, 8 hours a day.
Yes, it's very impressive when you are in your studio to see this labor, precise grid that you operate in your drawings. I'm also very impressed, especially in this selection of works here, by the color. You're using the intensity and fluidity sometimes of the color, but I see a lot of pink, some deep purple and blue that appears sometimes. And in this register of color, how do you work? I imagine you are mixing your color yourself. I've never seen you using the color. I just saw you working on the lines. So can you explain how you use this, your relation to the colors?
Actually, it's the first time that I mixed, and there are these the red and the blue. Because usually I used to use just red, very strong red, and then very dark black, and the color used to be more about light, about darkness, which is also light in another sense, and the red, which is the energy of the blood and the vital energy. So this is the first time that I use red and black, which gives a pinkish, weird color.
Yes.
And then the blue, which turns it into violet. So.
Was it something during the pandemic, or when you were more confined in your work, in your studio?
I don't find any psychological
effects. You are focused, and it was a good time to be focused in your studio anyway.
Yes, yes. I protect myself always, and I've been working always very hard in the studio, but in the pandemic was a privileged moment in a way that the phone wouldn't ring, and I didn't have emails to answer, so I could just be completely focused on my work.
And having different works hanged together, I also want to ask you a question about the rhythm, the way the works communicate together and dialogue together. This notion, you already started to speak about the notion of movement, but here in this exhibition, I really feel the movement and these sequences, this notion of sequences. Can you tell us more about this aspect of your work?
These works and these sequences of different surfaces, they are supposed to construct a very clear object or a very clear space, and then it results on an impossible space because the perspective is completely wrong, and so you have to deal with the mix with Renaissance perspective with Chinese perspective, which is other way around, because in the Renaissance perspective, the point where it comes, everything is it's endless. It's in a distance from your body, which is infinity, and in Chinese it's the other way around, because everything starts on you and then it goes larger and larger and larger. So it's a mix of these two perspective, which is the same thing in this corner piece of the sculpture, because you have one frame, a blue frame that is hanging on the right wall, and if you are in front of it, the perspective goes not to the corner but to a different place, and the other one goes on the other way completely around, and then you have a third point of view, which is the middle in between one and the other one. And so it's a kind of 3 points of view which are central and are incompatible one with the others.
Okay.
So it's this kind of tension that creates not just one frame with the other one, is the two frames with the corner as well. So, and then you have the empty space. In one frame you have the mirrored glass, which is mirror and transparent at the same time. So it's many impossibilities, very contradictory things made with almost nothing, which is 2 frames.
That's what I like about your work. And we're also showing this last series here, where you insist on the corner, on the frame of each plate of each grid or
each rectangle.
A rectangle. So especially the one that is in the vitrine here in the gallery. You really insist on this contrast with of the corner of the rectangle. It's very. I was very impressed by this. Is it something new in your series of drawing, or?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
So, okay, yeah,
because
I mean, from what I've seen.
Yes.
Maybe in the past, and I didn't see all your work, but from the recent years, the way the rectangle end was not, for me, was not so marked, so crucial.
Yes, I made some work in etchings in the early 90s that the space was defined by these frames.
Okay, very sharp.
Yes, very sharp.
Okay.
And empty frames, and with mixing 2 or 3 frames, they would construct a larger and more complex space. Then I just abandoned that and made these limits with a gouache, just with surfaces of color, and then I left and abandoned these surfaces made of gouache, and I started working with Indian ink and defining by thousands of lines one rectangle. And now in these drawings I mix these grids with the frames as well.
Okay. I also remember that that this work that is right here on your left, that is shown here as a diptych. In the studio, you showed me in different ways. So I liked also that there were different possibilities. And can you tell us how you end up to choose this way of presentation as a diptych when it could have been maybe different, or maybe horizontal, or one piece?
It's the same procedures that I use for the other drawings, which is performative in a way. So I started these drawings by mirrored drawings. They were a diptych and they were vertical, and on the other way that it's now. So the one that is on the right was on the left, and the one that is shown on the left was on the right. So there was an empty white space in between these mirrored drawings. Then I completed them, turning them around in a horizontal version, and they would be just one block made of different rectangles.
I saw this, you showed me that possibility.
Yes. And then we decided to put them vertical again and switching the positions. And so in a way it's all the possibilities, and I'm not interested in making one drawing and one object that is finished and that's all. There's something of being unfinished that for me it's crucial in order to consider it done.
Anyway, you work on your drawings horizontally.
I work them sometimes horizontally, and sometimes vertical. When I make the lines within Indian ink, I have them horizontal because otherwise I can't draw them. But goes.
We see with the dripping, with the element that is, yes, you turn them, you manipulate.
Yes.
A lot. You're manipulating the paper, and I also can feel that it's like each paper is like a battlefield. So you have been you see the energy you put in
in transit, and yes. Always moving and always in transit, and there's a moment where you decide, well, for this moment, for this time being, to stay like this.
Okay. And
then I start in another sheet of paper, the same movement and the same issues. So it's a process, an endless process.
Yes, it's a very processual moment. Thank you for this small conversation.
Thank you very much, Gregory.
To be continued.